Happy Friday. I'm the Gray Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Friday, December 22nd, 2023. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread. First card we are starting our day off with today. What are we going to do with the retrograde energy? We're going to use it to our advantage. We've got here our 7 of Pentacles. Patience, my friends, is key. Don't let the retrograde energy get you off track. Let it help you focus on what you are trying to grow, what you are trying to build. These things take time, effort, energy, masculine and feminine. In divine union, this has not been an easy week. There's been something about the path work that you're on right now that has been amplifying the difference between having a plan and having to experience a plan, specifically for the masculine, because leading from the heart space right now, we are seeing is proving something that is shaking the confidence of the masculine energy in this modality, potentially even putting something forth right now and not immediately seeing that reactivity point, almost telling oneself before you did something in a way that you were leading from your heart space, not necessarily doing it for the intended result, doesn't eliminate the hope that something will have the desired effect that you happen to desire to have. What we're seeing with masculine energy right now is almost that feeling or desire of hoping for some kind of beacon, hoping for some kind of sign. It's almost giving that energy of being like, give me a sign in a way, like give me some kind of motivation factor that something that you put forward is going to have that growth. But what we appreciate right now for the energy in the divine union frequency is that necessary patience is coming through in the partnership energy. Divine masculine and divine feminine almost guiding each other through this moment, reminding oneself that this is not a state of doing something for a reaction so much as this is doing something as a state of being. Recognizing that this is going to feel like a bit of like drops in the well, as it were. Having that moment of, again, this is just allowing that point of reactivity, having that point of healing that's coming through in that reminder of, again, not necessarily pulling back in terms of one's intentions, but almost recognizing and feeling the difference between putting something forward in a way and having that hope for a result, but needing to wait, recognizing that this is something that may amplify the fact that that desired effort isn't going to waste, that all of it is to that long-term aspiration or potentiality, because this is that moment that we see that for masculine and feminine divine union that is really amplifying the difference between doing something in a state or space of reactivity versus trying to be a constant gardener. Trying to just move in that way that allows for that degree of slowness, not necessarily to feel like a disadvantage, but to feel like something that you're incorporating in your own self and in your own experience. This is why we see for a lot of energy right now, and this is going to be like hard path work for masculine energy, even in divine union right now, because it is a gift of learning the power of patience and perseverance. And again, not necessarily doing something, not looking at situations and circumstances around you right now and feeling like there's something that you can effectively affect towards, but more feeling that you are putting that care and attention in the spaces and places that they need them for the desired hope that they will grow. Moving into that modality right now is something that we see that the energy in divine union is working through. And it's difficult because, again, it is not letting the slowness impact you as a point of frustration, but integrating it into the feeling of, again, almost the difference between doing something that feels like it is a reactivity point so much as it is a personal cause or personal mission, the way that one moves. Masculine and feminine, moving into divine union right now, this is the culmination of a lot of that path work that may have reached a culmination point just yesterday with that solstice energy. Because what have we been seeing right now with the energy coming into the divine union frequency? We saw that there were first the hurdles that you had to experience coming into divine union with energy that felt like they were oppositional to the divine union being created. Then you had to go through the second hurdle of something coming towards the divine union to a certain extent that feels like it is innocuous. It feels like it is harmless. It feels like it may even, again, be coming from like the most positive of places. The problem is that there is some kind of ongoing issue right now potentially happening, even in the energy of the divine union, between observing something that feels like it is harmless versus looking at something that is causing some kind of harm. That anxiety point right now that is being motivated in something that, again, on the outside does not look like it is a problematic thing, but having to see something that one party feels is problematic versus another party doesn't, is amplifying whether the energy can continue to move forward into divine union, because it is that moment of recognizing that. And again, I need to stress, if any of this energy is trying to get backwards glancing and trying to articulate and amplify the fact that, like, trying to see whether the energy itself intended the harm, that's not the point. The point of difficulty, the point of hurdle comes in the act of separation between not being able to come to like mind about something. That's the moment that anything can become harmful if you're not thinking about it in the right way. If you're not able to unify and align in terms of how to navigate it, then these are circumstances and situations that may have immediately pulled you back into separation. For masculine and feminine that are continuing forward right now into that divine union frequency, it is feeling like a moment of compromise. It is requiring, again, that moment of modality, especially if one party feels like something is harmless, the other one does not feel the same. If you are merging, if you're coming into a universalized choice as to how to navigate those situations and circumstances, the Mercury retrograde just became your friend, because it is amplifying a level or degree of being able to look at circumstances and situations and put some time into them. Put some practice of time, being able to, again, amplify and say anything that is not in fact harmful is coming in a positive way, then that clock of positivity does not change. It does not alter. It does not bend. The act of positivity is timeless. Therefore, if something is coming towards you in a good-natured, harmless way, then being able to extend the timeline on it to a point that is more comfortable. Because again, the last thing you need to do when you're coming into divine union is get distracted by doing some unhealed karmic work, because your direction, the now is not the time. Your focus is required elsewhere. It is that moment of recognizing that if this is an issue with unhealed karmic connections that are trying to mend bridges in the minute that you're trying to build a divine union, then that bridge building exercise can wait. It can wait a month. It can wait a week, because it's the amplification point in recognizing the difference between energy that is actually coming towards you to truly just mend a fence versus put up a wall for divine union to happen. And we see here that, again, implementing that practice of patience right now is what is allowing energy to continue forward into the divine union perspective, because this is the same lesson that while the energy in the divine union frequency that's deep in the heart of it is intentionally learning right now, this is what is required right now to allow energy trying to move into the divine union frequency to continue onward on that path. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this is that moment that we see. It's the same lesson. You see how the same lesson's trickling down across all of them? The energy here is that point of patience. Feminine is calling their energy back right now. Especially, I have to stress, if this is feminine energy that just came into separation because they saw masculine energy get distracted by something they claim is harmless, that has now just swept them off and they're now in separation over it. This is feminine energy being like, back with my energy, back with my energy. And I have to stress, this is feminine energy in separation overcompensating for one person's point of potentially harming them in this capacity by calling back all of their energy. This is feminine literally going swoop, pulling back all of their energy right now. This is why we see that the feminine in this modality right now is staying in their own lane to such a big extent, because this is feminine energy that is feeling the frustration that masculine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, lacks the ability of keeping their eye on the ball, lacks the ability of keeping their eye on the prize, is too easily distracted. And this is why feminine is not even like doing this right now from a point of anger or personal injury. This is feminine energy doing this, almost taking that like amplified energy, learning that act of stoicism, and feminine almost saying, I'm going to be my own gardener. I'm going to do it myself. I have to be custodial about my energy, because this is feminine energy that feels like the energy around them does not take cognizant effort and energy in recognizing the value and importance of being able to do the hard part in partnership as opposed to getting easily distracted by shiny objects. That's why we see that the feminine energy right now is almost moving into this vibration of austerity, because feminine's almost intentionally becoming austere right now to amplify the fact that they don't want the masculine energy that is too easily engaged with things that distract them, that are shiny. This is why, if this is feminine energy in separation right now, and there may be a lot of energy coming towards them, this is almost feminine energy being like, I'm not fun. I'm sorry. Oh, you want to come over here? I'm sorry. I'm doing my taxes tonight. I'm washing my hair. This is feminine energy, like looking for the most, I am doing something that is the most mundane thing possible, because this is feminine energy that's almost amplifying in a way the exhaustion point in masculine, that is utilizing or looking at feminine like they are a shiny object, like they are something that is a fun, engaging point, to narrow and discern whether energy is truly committed to the path of divine union, which requires hard work, versus just jumping from one easy thing to another. Masculine in this modality right now, if you're healing, I keep getting this line, I used to be a firefly chaser. This is almost, again, feminine navigating and almost recognizing that a lot of the masculine energy towards them right now, one of the ways that you yourself are identifying that you've healed is not pretending that you're perfect. Not pretending that you haven't necessarily been in that modality before. That point of personal accountability is one that you're giving your own self, because that point of accountability is helping to recognize why you find feminine in this modality. You're seeing and you're understanding why, and you're also seeing how your own changes within the self are going to effectively reflect in terms of how the feminine is reacting at this point. So we see, again, masculine. Funniest thing, I was just thinking, I miss doing my taxes. I would love to sit next to someone doing that. I was just thinking, I would love to watch someone doing their hair. I would also like to be there. I would love to be present, just doing nothing with you. Masculine energy, again, amplifying that level or degree of time, patience, austerity, saying, I also am not someone who will be distracted by anything that feels like it is more engaging right now. I am trying to stress that I also am looking to grow something, and recognizing that it doesn't immediately mean that something is going to come through. It's almost masculine amplifying and saying, I will wait. And it's not even, I need to stress this isn't masculine saying I will wait. This is masculine saying, I am not waiting, being present with you, just being with you in that moment is all that I seek to do. Continuing to get clarification, second card in our 5-card spread for today is King of Pentacles in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union and partnership right now. What is so hard for the masculine to do right now? Even if they intentionally desire to do this. What is really hard for masculine energy to do? Be patient. Masculine energy, even in divine partnership right now, it's not easy. Being patient is not easy. It's not getting the immediate reaction that you want. It's that feeling, and this is the retrograde having that impact. We see your masculine energy over the last few weeks moved forward in a certain way of leading with their heart space, trying to mend fences, trying to build bridges. This is that like heartbeat moment between doing something and having the exhale and seeing how it's going to respond. But the problem with the Mercury retrograde energy is one of those like, you got to wait. And then you got to wait. And so for masculine in this moment, it's frustrating because while the gift is coming in your ability to find patience, it's not easy. It's not easy. Thank you for the gift. But it's hard because like you're learning how to like, you're doing deep diving here. You're learning how to hold your breath. So it's not easy. Even as you're doing it, it's not easy. So even for masculine right now, that feeling, that anticipation factor is like one that you need to push through. Feminine, you may be seeing masculine in that. Even recognizing the masculine's working on being patient. But if there's any unsteadiness in masculine right now, it's because that is a part of the assignment and it's not easy for the masculine. So again, making sure to be a little tender right now for masculine energy in this modality, feminine. If you're in divine union, like just be a little mindful of that. Bit easier for feminine. Feminine's got that ability to be a bit more patient in this way. But again, that's something that feminine can bring assistance to masculine with right now by saying, like, I know that there's some things right now you're holding your breath on. Like, I see that. And just recognizing, giving that like security, that pat on the shoulder is going to help here. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this is that make or break point. And we see here that some of this energy moved back into separation. So help me if you guys did not listen to me. I warned you about this. Because again, masculine and feminine energy, there's a moment right now that is requiring a point of compromise. Again, potentially something that was being brought towards the masculine and feminine energy coming into partnership right now, that one energy feels like is harmless, the other one does not feel comfortable with. Navigating that territory right now is showing and amplifying whether the energy is going to stay in divine union. Because again, it's masculine having to show the ability to integrate into coming into like mind with the feminine. That's what divine union is. So if the masculine is showing that ability right now of being the solution, is patience, because a lot of this is talking about whatever this work is that is coming towards the masculine and feminine right now as divine unions forming. The amplified message coming back is now is not the time. You cannot build a bridge. You cannot heal something with a past karmic as you're in the middle of protecting a divine union. You can't do that kind of heavy work. That's AP level work. You can't do it at the same time, because what's actually happening is instead of you going back to address something, to heal something, what you're really doing is you're creating two different pathways. You're trying to walk in two places at once. Feminine sees this. Feminine sees that anything that masculine trying to forge a bridge or heal something with an unhealed karmic, at the same time they're trying to create a divine union, it's pulling them off of the path, because now is the time that the divine union needs to be protected. So we see here that for the energy coming into divine union right now, the amplification point is whether the masculine energy is willing and able to integrate, come to like mind with the feminine. And what is the solution here? Now is not the time. Amplifying the solution is in the problem, thereby with the Mercury retrograde. Time will amplify whether something is actually harmless or if it's coming through to disrupt something moving into divine union energy. And this is why if feminine energy sees a masculine right now that is refusing to do that, that is allowing their impatience to override what they're building, this is going to lead to a pretty integral separation point that will be hard to recover from, because this is feminine almost amplifying and saying that masculine is departing from what they're trying to grow between themselves right now and creating and bringing in an instability point. So we see here that this is why we find a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now is feeling so much almost like pushing past on the masculine energy, because some of them have immediately moved back into this space or place right now, because as we said, someone is like literally walking away from an act of cultivation and curation, saying, I'll just be back in a minute. I just need to go heal this with this person. I'll be right back to protect this thing that is so important and so valuable and so tender because it's just being formed. I'm going to come back to protect this very, very delicate thing. But this person over here is calling my attention. They say that, and this is feminine going, do you not see what's happening right now? Like, this is feminine being like, you're telling me that this is more important. You're telling me that this is something we need to protect, as someone is trying to distract you. This is why we see that the feminine energy is now almost in a moment right now where it's like they're so resistant to allowing masculine, and if in separation, because this is feminine saying masculine lacks that ability of being able to be constant as it relates to what is being grown right now. That distraction point's too much there. So we see here, masculine energy, if you're in separation right now, this is what we are also observing with you having that point of recognizing and potentially experiencing and seeing spaces and places in the past wherein that may have occurred. Masculine energy right now, the problem is potentially trying to come towards feminine in separation, and feminine won't trust you. Feminine energy is like, no, stay away. This is feminine. Masculine being like, I want to come back here. I want to take care of this with you. And feminine being like, no, you don't. No, you really don't. This is feminine almost because this is feminine that is feeling the cynicism or the anxiety of masculine actually being able to have that ability of being constant. So we see that for a lot of the masculine energy right now in separation, this is very difficult because there's almost that moment that feels unstable, because you can feel that lack of trust. You can feel that moment of feminine almost like pushing back to a certain extent, because it's like that doubt is already inherent with the energy right now. And what do we need to do on that? Are you going to let that build you into reactivity point? No. Make sure if you're masculine right now in separation, you're grounding your energy. You're grounding your energy. You're not going to get reactive from it. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Third card in our 5-card spread is our 3 of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine in divine union right now. This is what we are effectively seeing. The problem that we're seeing and identifying right now with the energy in divine union is almost this moment that is amplifying the difference between the energy outside the divine union versus the energy in the divine union. Masculine and feminine, we see here that a lot of this work for the energy that was in the divine union was intentional. It was purposeful. This is almost masculine recognizing. Remember what we were trying to point out, the fact that masculine was trying to do some path work right now in terms of healing, mending fences, building bridges. And this is that differentiation point that's amplifying right now for masculine between the energy that actually wants to heal, that wants to be able to come into that space and place of healing, versus energy that is not necessarily in that modality right now. Masculine energy almost accepting and moving into that state or space of surrender right now, in that even in divine union, is almost building and amplifying to a certain degree their own commitment to do so. Masculine and feminine, again, in divine union, allowing that not to steer them off course. It's a difference between feeling something that feels like an immediate momentary setback versus what you're growing, what you're building with yourself at this moment. And it's taking time. It's taking energy. It's taking effort. But that ability to ground right now is that separation point that is helping navigate anything that is making the masculine energy feel more unstable at this point. And feminine, you may be amplifying this to masculine at this time. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. What we are effectively seeing is this moment that is amplifying for the energy coming into divine union, that point of optics, and recognizing what feels like it is productive right now versus what is distracting you from coming into divine union. Because what we see right now for the energy coming into divine union is that moment that is saying that, again, any of this karmic path work that is popping up as you're about to move into divine union, it's not the fact that it might not be like intentionally in the best space. It's that now is not the time. Like your time, effort, and energy is needed on focusing on continuing to cultivate and curate the energy of keeping yourself in the divine union frequency. So we see here that for the energy that is doing so, this is almost, again, amplifying masculine, having to amplify to some energy around them and say, like, now isn't the time. Like that ability to heal and things like that, like this is all well and good, but this is almost masculine saying, like, to a certain extent, I don't have the bandwidth right now to do that kind of healing. Almost, again, not saying that it isn't something that's possible, but almost pushing it forward to be able to continue to curate and cultivate and move into that frequency. Feminine seeing masculine doing this right now is being amplified and feeling the security that this is masculine that they continue to grow with and can continue to move in the divine union frequency with, because this is a masculine, what have we been saying all week, that isn't distracted from the task at hand, which is protecting the divine union. Masculine and feminine that are falling out of the divine union frequency. This is why, because this is masculine literally going, this is harmless. They just want to and this is the feminine being like literally watching masculine walk away from a moment when they're supposed to be cultivating and curating something. And this is feminine, again, building that point of frustration, not even leaving the frequency. That's what's so valuable about this, not even leaving the frequency. Feminine almost like not even batting an eyelash, but not letting the masculine come back, because this is feminine almost feeling that affirmation point of masculine that is too easily distracted. And this is what is problematic for a lot of masculine energy right now. This isn't even necessarily feminine energy right now that is amplifying to the masculine that this is occurring. This is feminine energy that's almost just, if this is energy that's doing that, this is energy that's just letting that energy go. And like, if that masculine tries to come back, this is literally feminine being like masculine suddenly realizing like that as I kept saying this over the last few days, this is almost feminine that was trying to amplify to masculine, being like, if you walk out that door, you can never come back. But almost trying to say in like an energetic way, like energetically, you can come back and try to walk through that door. What you try to find is not going to be what you thought we had, because you've moved out of the frequency by showing your own distraction from getting away from it. Masculine in separation right now, this is that moment that again is almost amplifying potential frustration that you yourself are feeling around some circumstances or situations wherein you may be again doing a lot of that inner child work and looking at situations and circumstances wherein you've allowed yourself to get distracted. You allowed yourself to kind of move into that state or space of, again, you're moving towards the divine union frequency, and then some energy distracted you and got you off course. This is something that you yourself may recognize has occurred. And again, this is either a moment that is building a reaffirmed pathwork moment in seeing something and recognizing the difference between allowing oneself to get distracted from something versus having to amplify right now with new energy if you're trying to move towards feminine, and even amplify and say, like, this is like doubly committing, if you will, in terms of amplifying and saying to a certain extent, I know where my focus is. I know where I need to be. This is why we see that a lot of this masculine energy right now is moving into matching the feminine in separation and amplifying and saying, this is where my point of stability is, because this is the masculine almost saying, I don't care what other people are doing. I don't care if that stuff's fun. I would rather be here in the divine, in like, this is where I'm committing my time, effort, and energy. Because masculine, you're realizing that a divine union is something that you don't just walk into. It's something that you have to cultivate. It's something that you have to build. It's something that you need to do with time, effort, energy, and intentionality, even when it's not fun. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here our Ace of Pentacles in its reversal. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, like in the divine union frequency. This is all about that moment of, again, doubling down to a certain extent, continuing to commit to the long-term effort, commit to the long-term energy. And it is leading to some moments right now that are feeling frustrating, because even as it relates to like energy around you right now, outside energy, it's almost feeling like for the energy in the divine union, having to navigate any of the hurdles or pitfalls in like the desired impact of trying to heal things right now. Not immediately seeing the results or the tangible results of those actions, particularly for the masculine right now, is feeling very difficult. But we see here that the feminine energy, again, giving that support, remembering, almost reminding oneself where you were like when you set forward on this path, especially if this was about mending fences or building bridges, like almost that reminder and saying like, this work isn't lost. There's something here that's requiring a level or degree of patience, which is like almost, again, that point of identifying and saying like the nature or the gesture of what you're doing is never lost. You've put it there. Give it time. Let energy have that opportunity, because it's almost that moment of recognizing that it's allowing for someone to have that point of coming back or returning, if you will. So we see here for masculine and feminine, it's more of that act of profound patience, but reaffirming and recommitting to the pathwork, even if it isn't having the necessary immediate response or reaction that you may have hoped. That's like that double investing energy, and almost like reaffirming to the self that these are the directions that you want to move into right now. Because again, this work was not done for the sake of the reactivity point, but more as an act or gesture that it amplifies like a state of being. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency right now, this is that ratio effect. Having that optics right now of a ratio moment in terms of seeing how much energy one is committing to anything that's coming through as a positive gesture right now is amplifying right now the difference between what feels like it is coming through with the best of intentions versus a distraction point, versus something that isn't necessarily moving you in the motion in the direction that you aspire to at this time. So we see here that reminding point that, again, if something is coming in the positive intentional space, putting a time on it, extending the timeline, shouldn't take away the offer, shouldn't take away the gesture, shouldn't take away the advantage point. It almost just reaffirms right now whether the energy is, again, coming towards someone with the intention of building a bridge, or if they're trying to put a wall up in the divine union forming. All of it is coming through with the solution being that point of recognizing the power and import of utilizing a Mercury retrograde to its full advantage, which is saying that there's an advantage to slowing things down. And it is a little bit more difficult for masculine right now because, again, for masculine energy, there may be a feeling right now of something that is being seen as harmless, but someone not seeing it as harmless, but almost amplifying that the solution to that problem is found in the element of time. Masculine and feminine, if in separation, the reason the feminine is potentially in separation right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, is due to a masculine that lacked the patience in recognizing that time would be the solution in terms of determining if something was actually not a threat to the divine union or not, and wasn't motivated or wasn't interested in applying that practice of stretching time. So what we see right now, this is why we see a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now, feeling doubly guarded against masculine energy, especially if there was a moment where feminine feels like bringing time into something was going to clarify if something was truly innocuous or not. This is the feminine almost have feeling that point of reaffirming that masculine recognized that they didn't necessarily want to move into the divine union because, again, masculine getting too distracted by outside circumstances and situations, masculine's own ratio and recognizing where their value point needs to be, coming to like mind with feminine, is that point of recognizing and amplifying to feminine, why we see so much of the feminine energy in separation right now, almost reaffirming and saying to themselves, I'm just going to do it myself. Because a lot of it's almost creating a state and space of feeling very cynical that there's healed masculine energy that isn't distracted in this way. Now, feminine, masculine energy in separation right now, that point of optics, that point of recognition on your own healing journey is so difficult or arduous right now, specifically due to the fact that we are recognizing that for a lot of the energy in this modality right now, that point where you may have moved in that capacity in the past is one that you recognize within the self. It's one that you may even see. And that's why we see that there's a point right now on your own healing journey where you may be intentionally turning away from that. We see here that there's that moment of identifying and almost saying, again, this is why this comes through as a certain extent as inner child healing, because you're looking at things and saying, I don't desire that anymore. Those things no longer captivate me. Or feeling in a way some amplification and recognizing and feeling the point of distraction that may be created in them. And we see that in a way, a lot of this work for masculine right now is also a point of putting a lot of time, effort, and energy into, much like the feminine in separation, focusing on what it is you truly value, what it is you're truly trying to grow, and not letting yourself get distracted off course from anything that may appear that gets you deviated from that path. So a lot of austerity coming into play for masculine and feminine in separation, which is a good thing. Because that means that there's a point of being able to value judge one another by the committed effort and energy in doing things that feel very mundane. As I said, where do you find your source of pleasure right now? Masculine and feminine in separation. Everybody's about to get really austere right now because it's really not coming through shiny objects. Masculine energy and feminine effectively matching each other to a certain degree right now because, again, feminine's almost at a point where they're pushing away masculine energy. Almost saying to a certain extent, I am not fun. I am not shiny. I'm focusing on what I need to do. And this is feminine identifying the masculine that wants to meet them in that way by saying, I do too. Guess what? That's my favorite thing to do. Doing something that is not shiny and fun is my favorite thing to do. And that's why we see now that there's a lot of that slow growth that's happening here, because again, it's that point of building that point of security for one another. Masculine doing this to a certain extent and giving that time and space to things to allow that point of affirming that you're not necessarily distracted off course by anything around you that feels like it might create a distraction point. Feminine also seeing that potentially even in separation right now, that healed masculine energy, or recognizing the masculine energy that again isn't moving in a state or space of wanting to like jump to anything that feels engaging or exciting, but is almost trying to hold space with you, even as you're doing things that feel more mundane. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is that point of optics that we are recognizing that is amplifying whether the energy is still in that point of distraction. This is why we see a lot of the feminine energy isn't chasing after a masculine that is taking something and saying, oh, it's just harmless. This person just wants to talk. This is feminine energy being like, I've seen this before. There's like, and especially if this is feminine energy that is amplifying a desire for masculine to wait, to put patience on something. If this is masculine that is not doing so, this is feminine energy that's not even arguing, because feminine's seen all they need to see. This is feminine energy seeing like masculine energy is just effectively shown that they lack that ability of being fastidious, caring for the things that need to be cared for. This is almost feminine allowing that masculine energy to move in that capacity, but not trying to adjust it, almost immediately feeling stability and recognizing that feminine's continuing to grow forth in that way, but now utilizing that as a point of optics to recommend and desire to find masculine energy that isn't going to be as easily distracted as the next like shiny objects that's around them, because feminine has almost reached a point of like frustration if that's occurring. The energy that is staying in the divine union frequency or continuing forward into that divine union frequency, it is that implementation. Even if energy right now is trying to come towards the energy with the best of intentions, it's that moment of, again, utilizing the Mercury retrograde and saying anything positive that is truly just coming through in a positive way and not trying to disrupt the divine union forming will be just as it's going to keep. The good will keep. Like the good energy is not like fish. It's not going to go away if there needs to be some time extended to it. It's just going to remain there. And we see here that again, the masculine and feminine energy in divine union, navigating one mind, is amplifying and saying, if something is coming towards them in a truly positive way, then it will keep. And that time will not have an import on it. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency right now. This is that point of feeling the comfort and security of keeping, again, your eye on the horizon, the long-term growth, the long-term plans, even as it relates to any immediate or momentary setbacks that you might be experiencing right now. This is masculine and feminine right now, navigating those hurdles and maintaining a point of positivity, because nothing that you're doing right now is being matched by like immediate setbacks. Instead, it's that observable point in terms of looking at what you're growing towards in the long term. Even as masculine may be feeling some of that immediate hurdle right now, we almost see that feminine is just giving that point like reassurance as we go forward from that point. Continuing to get clarity on these cards right now between our Seven of Pentacles in combination with our King of Pentacles in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Two cards coming out right now. We've got here our Knight of Cups in combination with our Ace of Swords in its reversal. One of the things that we are observing right now as it relates to some of the ways that masculine's been moving forward at this point is that point of observation in terms of navigating what is beyond masculine's own sense of self. There's something here that masculine was leading forth in a way, some kind of emotional gesture, some kind of emotional giving forth. That recognition point in terms of what you get back is something that you need to release to a certain extent. And we see here that a lot of that instability point for the masculine energy and divine union right now is, again, letting go, surrendering the outcome, letting that be a point of release. Because again, whatever these things were, we see here, it wasn't that you were doing them from the state or space of expecting that it'll have that result. It was almost that reminder that we see masculine is giving themselves right now, that this was a lot of karmic clearance. And what do we see when we do karmic clearance work? The sense that you did it more to feel like you did it, because you know that that's what one needs or ought to do, versus the need or desire for a response or reaction. So we see right now from the masculine energy that act of surrendering is further the amplification of, like, what did we say yesterday? Which is like, what should masculine do when they're feeling that lack of confidence? Feminine was almost saying to masculine, give it more love, give it more energy, give it more support. This is masculine in that moment, almost surrendering the outcome and feeling secure that that energy or effort isn't lost, because it's all happening under the earth. That's the retrograde message. None of it's lost. It's going to come back up. It just sometimes might take time. Masculine, feminine energy seeing masculine in this modality right now, this could also be a moment that for feminine it's very difficult and hard, because feminine seeing masculine in this modality may feel very difficult. It may be hard for the feminine to see that, because again, this was a lot of movement that we see feminine almost observing masculine wearing their heart on their sleeve, as it were, but almost recognizing and remembering in the same moment that this possibility or opportunity as it relates to what you're growing right now is something of, again, that point of reassurance. A lot of this is coming through a feminine saying, again, keep your eye on what we're growing together. Keep your eye on what we're building. Remember that any of these momentary setbacks are not necessarily important, because none of that is lost. And that's almost that moment of, again, amplifying to masculine that this is learning patience, that this is an act of learning patience, and that patience doesn't require an immediate response. It almost requires a deeper level of surrender. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union, this is masculine having to learn patience, especially if this is something that is harmless. Masculine seeing something that they feel is harmless. This is feminine coming into like mind, saying anything that's worth it can wait. Good, the good keeps. It's not fish. If something is coming towards us with for a good reason, extending the timeline isn't going to affect it. It's going to just perpetuate the fact that it is in fact coming through in a good way. That is allowing the masculine energy a moment of surrender, and much like we see the energy right now that's doing this work intentionally in the divine union frequency, in recognizing and feeling like there is this point of surrender, because there's almost like something about, like, again, having to pull back and say, I would love to right now, but I can't. I would love to right now, but I can't. But later, yes, right? That extension of the timeline that we see here. But again, that moment is almost amplifying to masculine the fact that your priority is what you're growing, what you're building. It's still difficult for masculine right now, because again, there's something even in this moment that is observable that you're also identifying, is going to effectively identify whether something was coming from a good-natured space or if it wasn't. For some of the masculine and feminine energy right now, this is a separation point. If this is a feminine energy that is asking the masculine something that you cannot come to like minds with about waiting, if instead this is something where masculine wants to move forward and is almost refusing to wait on, this is something that may immediately lead to separation, because this is a minute where feminine feels like all of these cards get reversed. That this isn't in fact a masculine whose priority is potentially growing something with feminine, but a masculine that shows an inability to say no to opportunities around the divine union, due regardless of whether they feel like they're not harmful or not. This is feminine almost again. If this happens, this is leading to a very critical separation point with feminine, because this is feminine feeling that masculine isn't taking accountability for feminine's emotions and is showing a lack of constancy. And this is why we see that for feminine separation, this is almost leading to an immediate separation point but a focus for feminine, calling back their energy and just continuing to grow forward in this way. This is why we see the feminine energy in separation right now is also very much blocking masculine energy, almost stressing their own austerity to a degree, because they're feeling that collective lesson here. They're feeling that degree of the frustration of seeing a masculine energies around them that they feel are too easily distracted from the long-term gift, from the long-term opportunity. And we see that for a lot of the masculine energy in separation right now that is trying to grow, that is trying to heal, having to address those past versions of self that may have been in that modality, it feels a lot like a point of frustration, because it's almost like you have to put the karmic weight, not just on your own back, of your past healing, because it's not blaming yourself for being in that modality, because you don't blame yourself when you're healing, you forgive that energy, but it's also feeling the frustration weight of energy that you feel isn't on the healing journey. Energy that's still actively in that modality. Energy that's still moving in that way, because it feels like you have to do the weight of twice as many, because you're carrying their weight on their back, on your back, as well as you do this. This is almost masculine. Like, again, it's almost like if you're on that healing journey right now, masculine, it feels like you're pushing up against like a tide of energy around you. And it's not just your own self, it's other masculine energy that you feel like you're trying to like have to show that through your own constancy, through your own ability in terms of being austere, that you're not like the rest of the energy. And it almost feels like this act of like profound surrender, because it feels like in a way like the sacrifice is having to show this level or degree of austerity, but also it's helping you on your own healing path, because again, it's reminding you like you are now embodying the same exact lesson of the feminine, because you're working through it with your experience of your past self and the energy around you that you feel isn't helping your cause. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between the King of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Three of Cups in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Two of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine in divine union. What we are effectively seeing is, again, that moment right now of masculine having to navigate circumstances and situations. There's that anxiety point. There's those points that we are seeing right now that are creating these spaces and places of struggle, these spaces and places of frustration. For masculine right now, a lot of that feeling of instability is almost coming through right now. Again, in a lot of anxiety as it relates to outside energy that's around you right now. Masculine, you may be feeling like you are navigating a lot of spaces and places where you have to do a lot of this like unhealed karmic energy. I will stress though that for a lot of the masculine energy in divine union, this was, I want to articulate in a way for some of the masculine energy in this modality right now. This is almost that feeling of having to like navigate or bite off that sense of biting off more than you can chew, because it's almost building that sense right now of having to deal with a lot of unhealed karmic energy that's around you right now that needs that point of healing. It needs that center of healing. Feminine energy in this modality right now, you are also going through this. For the energy right now, in the divine union frequency, even now, there's a lot of weight and energy that we see is still being navigated. But again, keeping your eye on like what you're trying to grow, your long-term potentiality, what you're actually trying to build is going to help ground right now. Specifically because there's so much of this energy that we're seeing here around the divine unions that aren't in that same state or space of grounding. Again, it's almost like the grounded energy is attracting the unhealed energy. But being able to make sure that it doesn't trigger you, making sure that it doesn't bring you into a state or space of also getting triggered today is going to be very important. Because we are seeing here that especially for masculine, one of the things that we're seeing right now that could happen for the masculine and divine union is feeling like you can't please everybody. There's something that we see is happening here for masculine energy and divine union, which feels like this is giving me a lot of energy of like, you can please some of the people some of the time. You can please, like all the people some of the time. You can please some of the people all the time. You can't please all the people all the time. So for a lot of the masculine energy right now in divine union, there could be a moment of frustration, or masculine maybe feeling a little short today because it feels to some way, shape, or form like there's something about like not being able to like please everybody through what you're trying to do right now. But again, a good feminine energy around the masculine right now is going, what are you going to do? What's the feminine doing? Is feminine going to add to this? No. Feminine energy, bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Recognize someone who's trying to do their best. Okay? This is what everybody needs right now. They just need that gentle pressure and that reminder, even in divine union. Everybody's just doing their best. Nobody's just coming towards each other to try to create problems. Everybody is just doing their best, okay? I want everybody you see today, all right? If they're coming up to you, look, if they come up to you and they're making things difficult, I want you to just put your hand on your shoulder and be like, I know you're doing your best, okay? I know you're doing your best. Masculine especially potentially needs this right now. Feminine, one of the things that could be frustrated right now is, again, seeing the masculine kind of shaken in this modality. Don't let it shake you. Help them through it. Ground them, okay? Don't become a mirror to what you don't want reflected, okay? Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is why it is so difficult, because again, what's masculine feeling? What did I just say? This isn't something that is intentional right now on the part of the masculine. This isn't an intentional journey. This is what the divine union's bringing out. I'm going to say the same exact thing I just said. Masculine, you may be feeling the frustration right now and feeling like you can please the divine union some of the time. And you can please the divine union, or you can please the energy outside the divine union. You got to please the divine union. You got to please the divine union. If you're staying in the divine union, you got to please the divine union. And we're seeing here that for the masculine energy, there's that point of recognizing that feeling of compromise to a certain extent, especially having to stress the timeline on some things, because there's that moment that is the amplification point that we're seeing between the energy outside the partnership that's desiring one thing right now, and energy within the partnership. That's, again, coming into like minds with something is requiring a point of compromise for some of the masculine energy right now. But it's not. It's a decision point, because again, where does your priority lie? Did you just hear what I said? Where does your priority lie? Are you going to come with like minds in terms of addressing things from the point of view and optics of being in divine union? Or are you going to make an autonomous decision and choose the outside energy? Because there's a choice. It's a choice. And moving into that modality right now is, again, the ratio effect. Where are you putting your priority? In moving in that space of maintaining the like mind through a point of compromise to stay in the divine union frequency, or allowing something that, again, if you say if it's harmless, it can wait. There shouldn't be an extent. There shouldn't be something that feels like it's immediate, because that is that point of optics for masculine. Especially if the energy outside the partnership is saying that something can't wait. It's almost that amplification point in recognizing that this does feel like a little bit of a power struggle right now for energy of masculine going into divine union. And that's kind of funny, isn't it? So if that's happening right now, this is why we see it's so important for the energy trying to come into divine union right now to maintain that like mind, to maintain that unified perspective, even if something is harmless right now, or even if someone is observing something as harmless, because that is that moment that is amplifying whether you're staying in that frequency or whether you're moving into separation. Feminine energy, this is why the feminine energy is so guarded right now for masculine if in separation, because this is feminine energy that literally is in a modality right now in separation where they've lost a feeling of trust for masculine, because there's a feeling of masculine not being able. This is literally feminine. It's not even a fact of feeling like the masculine. This is almost feminine. This is feeling like masculine doesn't even make the choice. This is almost feminine feeling to a certain extent in separation, that masculine energy inherently lacks the ability of willpower. This is literally the note being feeling of masculine having an inability, like not a choice, an inability of allowing themselves not to move towards their willpower right now, which is why we see so much of this feminine energy right now, if in separation, is just walking back from the masculine energy entirely right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, because this is a feminine energy that is doing so from a sense of exhaustion and frustration, if you will. Masculine energy, if in separation right now, this is why we see that if you are trying to heal, it is so difficult because you see that this is the environment that you find yourself in. This is where you are finding yourself. And it's that moment of recognizing what an uphill battle it feels like if in separation right now, because either masculine, if you are in separation, you just either moved into separation because of that, because of something harmless that you're now identifying was quite harmful, and now you're in separation entirely, or because there's that point of outside observation and feeling and recognizing in some way, shape, or form that the past version of self, like, may have also had these points. There may have been, again, this is that point of commitment moving forward, that point of accountability. But even for the masculine energy right now in this modality, grounding through this is key, because there's that moment that we're effectively seeing that feels so potentially frustrating, because it's almost creating that state or space of feeling like, the feminine energy is so resistant that it makes it hard for you to be able to have a foothold in a way. It makes it hard for you to be able to show to a certain extent, because it's like the energy itself is so committed to that feeling that it's almost hard to amplify and say, because you can't say it, you have to show it, right? So even now for masculine energy and separation, it could be feeling very difficult. So making sure that you're grounding right now is key, because a lot of this patience is also kind of a hard part of your own personal journey. Continuing to get clarification between our Three of Cups in its reversal and our Ace of Pentacles in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? What's the solution? What's the solution for the masculine energy and separation right now? Patience and commitment. Patience and commitment. I told you the difficulty or hurdle right now for a lot of the energy during this retrograde period has to do with that breath in between, that holding your breath factor between doing something and not seeing it have the result, because this is again a moment that recognizing that this isn't about results, right? The way you choose a state of being versus something that you're doing for reaction is whether you do it without the expectation that something will come back in kind. So for a lot of the masculine energy right now, again, if you're on that healing journey, coming into that state or space of building the sense of patience is almost coming through as that act of austerity to a certain degree right now, because it's almost that moment of, again, this isn't feeling like something that you're doing for the sake of the feminine. This is a state of being. This is something that you're making the commitment to change within oneself for the sake of oneself. And we see in that way, one of the ways that you're doing this is almost like starting to make these points of accommodation in your own self, because it's almost like moving into this state or space where you're teaching yourself not to get distracted, even if it doesn't have to do with another feminine, by just not getting distracted in your own life. It's almost like refocusing your own energy and effort into what you're trying to grow and build for yourself, even around anything that may feel like a distraction, because now it's almost that difference that you're building towards moving towards a singular focus versus anything you feel is just trying to distract you from that path. And that has to do with, again, if this is commitment to a feminine energy, this is almost you continuing to commit forward in that way, almost by amplifying the fact that you're just, this is almost like masculine saying are you working? I am also just working. This is all I am doing too. No, I'm not doing anything else. This is what I am doing, because this is masculine moving into that state or space of almost, again, saying this is how I move. This is who I am, because this is that point that this is becoming a part of personal path work for masculine energy and separation. Feminine seeing masculine in this modality right now, this is what feminine is also looking towards. Feminine is looking towards masculine energy that isn't like moving through, popping through different things, different circumstances. This is a masculine energy. Feminine is looking right now for masculine energy that seems committed to what they're creating, focused and driven, and staying very committed to their efforts right now, both on their tangible life, the way they see them kind of living their life right now, as well as that point and recognizing masculine energy that's almost like shunning the opportunities of other energy around them, because this is again on a way feminine seeing by almost like observing masculine and feeling that sense of security, because it's almost seeing masculine that is again embodying that state of being, right? It's like attracts like. So what's feminine doing right now? Feminine's focusing on themselves, and they're working their tail off to raise their vibration to find masculine energy. That again, what is the masculine doing? The feminine's looking for working their tail off, shunning outside situations and circumstances, because like is attracting like here, right? It's like looking for that point of austerity is that clearance point. And we see that for the masculine and feminine, this modality, one of the ways that you're doing this is almost that point of recognizing, holding space for one another as you do so. Like this is giving a lot of energy of people who are just like, I'm just going to work next to you. Oh, you're working. That's great. I'll bring my work too. We'll work together. We'll both focus on what we're doing together in the same space. Right? Like that's how the energy that's healing is like identifying themselves right now, because this is like where we've moved into. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency. It is that moment, right? Utilizing the retrograde to your advantage, which is again, it's not the fact that there aren't energies that may want to heal around you right now, but almost having to have that point of saying like, I'm sorry, I can't right now. I'm overly like, look, this is literally like I'm the masculine and feminine divine union are saying effectively, I'm too busy right now, but I would like to soon. Having to put something off to a certain extent is almost amplifying a lot of the energy around the divine union to say, if something is coming from a good space and place, that kind of energy is always going to be appreciated and valued, is what's building that clearance, if you will, and feeling like what is actually productive versus any energy that would get like reactionary because you're not working on their timeline. Well, then that's just kind of presented itself as something that wasn't necessarily coming from a beneficial space or state. Now, masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, what we are effectively identifying here is that moment that, again, it's requiring you to double down. It's requiring you to put in twice as much effort right now. It's requiring you to continue to apply pressure in the spaces and places that you desire. And again, it is feeling very difficult because some of this work is work that you intentionally knew was going to be harder. This is, again, almost putting that pressure in. And again, almost, I want to say this, like extending that positivity around energy that may not necessarily be as inclined. But what's important about this right now is not the fact that this is feeling like it's forced. It's almost the re-amplification, if you will, of masculine and feminine energy, extending something and almost having that be a point in saying, it's there for the taking. It's not something you need to take now or later. It's offered. It is something that is being extended with a point of positivity. And having that surrendering of the outcome on something is what is allowing for that continuation, because that is what the work effectively demands. That is the gift. The idea of, again, when you give a gift, it doesn't have any strings attached to it. It is that moment of doing something and saying, this is a gesture, this is a goodwill, this is an act of goodness that I'm trying to put towards a situation or circumstance that is unhealed. And that is all you need to know. It's like that complete surrendering of the outcome is what's amplifying that the work, in a way, regardless of the outcome, was successful, right? That's what's so hard about this type of work, this energy, because healing these unhealed karmic connections, you can't like take it and say, heal. You can't fix it. It's either something you just extend and say, it is there. Like doing your part, if you will. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Ace of Pentacles in combination with our Sun card. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now. We love this. What did I say the feminine's doing right now for the masculine that's feeling a little unstable, not seeing the results of their actions? Giving emotional support. Having that not build a point. Again, feminine being a mindful mirror, not just mirroring that point of instability of masculine, but almost pulling out of oneself, that center of positivity, remembering and referencing in a way what masculine has done at points when you have felt less than stable. You know, this is almost feminine. Again, what is feminine doing in this moment? Feeding back, delivering back the message to masculine and saying to masculine, like, remember when I was feeling like that? Remember when I did that? Remember when this occurred? This is feminine bringing that healing in by amplifying to masculine right now, that point of positivity, almost saying to masculine, like, I've also had these moments. These are experiences that I've also shared. And having that point of, again, it's just going to feel like that overabundance of care on something that may feel like emotional, like a point of masculine feeling a little unstable towards it, is what's effectively going to help bring that point of positivity back. Because that's almost that moment of feminine reaffirming to masculine to a certain extent. You know, we don't, like, you didn't move in this way to get a reaction. You did this because you were doing it from a state and space of care. You did it because you care. That work is never lost. It's creating that sense of peace around it is almost immediately how feminine's able to help heal the masculine in this moment. Feminine, again, amplifying that, because that's feminine almost saying, like, I've got your back, even at moments that you are feeling that point of anxiety. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is the masculine staying in divine union by, again, what is the masculine doing to perpetuate the energy of staying in the divine union? The priority is on the feminine's emotional center, doing what the feminine feels comfortable for, amplifying the positivity of the feminine. Again, almost saying to the feminine, I may feel like this, but I'm not going to go forward unless you also feel like this. That point of recognizing is that point of amplifying that you're staying in the divine union frequency, because masculine, you're putting your priority on the emotional health and balance of the feminine. Feminine seeing a masculine there that is willing to forego something or delay something for the sake of feminine's peace of mind is immediately amplifying the positivity and allowing something to proceed forward, continuing in the divine union frequency. Feminine energy and separation. This is why if there's a separation moment right now, feminine isn't even allowing themselves to get too frustrated about it. I have to stress, this isn't a feminine energy that's going through a heartbreak right now if they saw a feminine do this. This is a feminine energy almost immediately affirming and putting that energy back in their own self. Because this is feminine that's feeling the point of karmic clearance, that they know that they didn't do anything wrong in this scenario. This is almost that moment of feminine feeling the security and stability of feminine saying, like, I knew where my priorities lay. I know where my center is. This is feminine energy immediately feeling that point, even as they're going forward in this way in separation, because this is feminine energy that if this just led them to separation, a masculine that didn't have an ability to stay focused and commit to the divine union, this is feminine energy that's immediately reinvesting that back in themselves, immediately putting that time, effort, and energy back in the self, because this is feminine energy finding that sense of not even leaving that vibration that they were building towards, holding it and saying, I'm not going to let this pull me back out, because the masculine has shown some ability and capability of staying on that same path. Masculine energy right now in separation. One of the things that we see that is difficult right now is that point that's amplifying that if you are on your healing journey right now, there's a lot of energy that you may potentially be focusing right now on a single energy of feminine. This is masculine, again, learning that difficulty, potentially seeing how in the past you may have denied yourself a larger pleasure because of those more immediate distractions. So we see that for a lot of masculine energy right now, if you're on your healing journey, this is that moment that you're building some kind of peace or serenity and recognizing the feeling of really committing forward in a direction or on a path by showing through very tangible effort where you are investing your time, effort, and energy towards a singular focus of feminine in order to build that sense of security, of stability, of emotional balance, building that center and trying to maintain that point of emotional positivity for the feminine in this way is, in a way, helping you break through any of these points that you're seeing that feel like an instability factor, because that's how we're seeing that you're realizing that you can come back into connection with feminine. It's something that takes work. It's going to take over investment in you, if you will. But it's almost recognizing that that's an over investment that will effectively pay off so long as you show your own ability and degree of finding feminine energy that is similarly in that same modality of seeking what you are seeking. So for some of the masculine energy right now, you're focusing a lot of energy right now on a single feminine, that you're hoping to build this with. Like, this is you coming into that state or space of like long-term committed effort. Or it's reaching that point of understanding within the self in terms of how you're going to move going forward. Continuing to get clarity on these cards right now, between our Ace of Swords in combination with our Knight of Cups in its reversal and our Two of Cups in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our High Priestess in its reversal. Now, one of the only difficulties or hurdles that we're seeing right now as it relates to divine feminine and divine masculine energy and divine union right now is just as masculine is feeling that point of instability right now as it relates to how to give forth, feminine is also experiencing their own feelings of doubt, their own feelings of uncertainty, their own feelings of doubting of one's own self. So we need to be very conscientious right now of triggers being hit today, because we see that one of the things that's happening right now is that point of feminine also feeling the frustration for masculine right now as it relates to situations or circumstances through which they've been trying to put their time, effort, and energy, and feeling a point of feminine also doubting their own selves at this time. This is feminine potentially, again, this is feminine that's very invested in the same path work as masculine. So what are we seeing that's difficult for feminine right now? It's not the fact that feminine doesn't also feel those anxieties, feel those fears. What feminine is effectively doing right now is feminine's almost trying to mask, almost trying to emotionally or spiritually mask their own feelings, because feminine is trying not to reflect and amplify the fears or anxieties of the masculine, but instead trying to bring forth towards masculine those feelings of positivity, those feelings of confidence. This is feminine doing deep path work right now, because this is feminine that is observing their own ability of mirroring emotions of the masculine energy, but recognizing that what did I say? They don't want to be an unhealthy mirror. So what is feminine doing right now? Feminine is being a very mindful mirror. Not the fact that the feminine doesn't feel certain things, but not allowing the negative to be amplified, not allowing that part to be expressed. And it may feel to the masculine right now that feminine is feeling like a little bit more closed off, but we see here that this is because this is feminine energy, if in divine union, trying to amplify the positivity that they know that the masculine needs at this time, rather than letting their own doubts, their own fears amplify circumstances or situations. So we see here that for both energies, this is where we start getting into some very, very interesting, careful karmic work, because feminine is learning to do this for their own selves right now, all for the sake of being mindful of not wanting to bring forth something that they feel isn't going to negatively or deleteriously impact a masculine energy who may be feeling a little bit emotionally fragile right now as it relates to some of their own path work at this time. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this is that moment that is difficult for the feminine, because again, this is feminine seeing or experiencing a moment right now where they recognize that masculine and feminine were not necessarily completely of like minds at this moment. This was something that may have required or caused a point of compromise. But what's important right now for feminine is not to start getting into this vacillation game. not to start getting into changing your mind at the last moment, not getting into this moment of like shifting one's own directionality. Because what we're seeing here right now, again, for a lot of this is where the feminine needs to be very conscientious that they don't mess up anything as it relates to moving into the divine union frequency too, is recognizing the point of frustration in potentially choosing to move in a direction, having energy agree with you on that choice, and then starting to vacillate. Because moving in that way almost immediately can also create a state or space for masculine that is difficult to inhabit. It's hard to stay in divine union with an energy of feminine that vacillates too much or moves back and forth in terms of changing what they desire, especially if this is masculine that's already come into some point of accommodation to be able to match what the feminine desired. So feminine, I'm warning you right now. If this is a moment where masculine and you came to a point of agreement, you came to a point of decision, make sure that you're not shifting again, because that's a moment that could potentially lead you into separation, especially if this is a masculine that already made a point of compromise to meet you somewhere. And now again, you're shifting. Now again, you're changing, because then you are starting to become something that feels too changeable to be able to maintain a divine union with, because it's like this is now a moment where masculine is trying to match you, but you're changing too much, which may make the masculine feel to a certain extent that you are becoming impossible to please. So being able to maintain a focus in terms of experiencing and accepting the decision that you may have reached with masculine right now is very important for feminine to be able to stay in divine union. You see these messages, I'm not always going on the masculine. It's not always the masculine. Feminine needs to recognize their own ability here, okay? Feminine also needs to recognize those points where their own adaptability can also become problematic. Masculine and feminine, and masculine right now, this is why we see it's very important to see that, again, if masculine's speaking and saying, like, I'm making this point of, like, compromise. This is also what's important right now, masculine. This isn't a feeling of doing something for the sake of the feminine. I need to stress this. Masculine, your job right now is not to say, I'm doing this for you. Okay, the minute you say, I'm doing this for you, you're back into separation. It is coming into like minds, saying we are in agreement. We have decided how to move forward, recognizing that that is a choice. Divine union, you get what you get. You don't get upset, okay? Recognizing that that is not something you're doing for the other person. You're doing it for the sake of the divine union. That is what is allowing you to continue forward into it. But even feminine right now is feeling the anxiety point of masculine. Feminine doesn't like to see masculine feel like they're doing something for feminine's sake. Feminine wants to see masculine that's saying, I'm doing this because I choose to. So this is where we start getting that, again, difference between holding space and making space, okay? Speaking of which, that is what we're seeing right now for the feminine and masculine in separation right now. Because for the energy in separation, this is feminine energy that is literally trying to stay closed off to masculine to like a huge degree. Feminine energy right now, I need to stress, there's going to be a lot of path work that's necessary here, especially if this is a feminine that feels like they just saw masculine get let off of their course and they didn't come to like minds with feminine. Something that masculine literally just put their time and effort and energy in something about building or fixing something outside of divine union at the time that divine union was trying to form. This is feminine energy that's just like, because this is feminine energy that feels the profound frustration not only in seeing masculine move in this way, but feminine potentially feeling the frustration of trying to tell masculine that this was happening and masculine not being, like, not listening. Like, it's almost that moment that we're seeing here with like feminine just feeling like that point, and it's that combination effort. This is why feminine's getting so closed off to masculine, because it's almost feminine feeling that weight. If in separation, that not only did masculine make the wrong choice, but masculine didn't take feminine's, like, feminine was trying to warn masculine about this as it was happening. This is why we see that for a lot of the feminine energy right now, there is that sense of deep cynicism coming in that's almost leading to surrender related to coming into partnership at all right now. Which is why we're effectively saying that for a lot of the energy in this modality right now, there's a lot of this feeling. And for masculine, I have to stress, if you're a masculine in separation right now, this is a very, very difficult situation. because this is that moment that you may see, you may know exactly what you want to approach, you know who you want to approach, but you see all the reasons why the energy that you want to approach is so guarded, and almost to the point that we're seeing here that this is energy that's almost like sworn off. Like, this is giving the type of energy of masculine, like being like, I've sworn off relationships, and being like, no, I know why you sworn off relationships. You don't actually not want to be in divine union. you've just assumed that there's no one healed. So for masculine right now, that's moving in this modality right now, it is that moment that feels so difficult, because it is recognizing that in order to move towards the feminine that you may aspire to right now, it's going to take a lot of convincing. It's going to take a lot of convincing, because this is a feminine energy that's almost like they've sworn off the energy of masculine right now, because they're so guarded off. They're so close. And they're almost like they've surrendered the possibility. They're like, it's not in the cards for me. And this is exactly the energy of masculine being like, it is. I know exactly why. And this is why I'm coming towards you right now. Right? This is almost masculine having to amplify and almost in a way say, like, I understand why. It's coming from a state or space of deep empathy for masculine, because you're almost seeing the fact that, like, this is feminine energy moving in this modality right now with like that overabundance of caution due to what you recognize and see is now a lot of the unhealed masculine energy potentially around you at this time. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Knight of Cups in its reversal in combination with our Eight of Pentacles. May I please have one card to clarify? What did I say? And yet, this is why we find the feminine energy so guarded right now. This is why we find that a lot of the feminine energy and separation is moving right now in this space or place where they're just focusing on their own work and they're keeping their walls up. Lots of walls up here. And this is also why we see, I have to stress this, if this is energy trying to come back into contact with feminine after a moment where feminine tried to articulate and amplify and say, let's be like minds on something. And someone was like, no, I just need to do this and come back and then we can be like minds. This is feminine almost being like, no, I tried to tell you. You can't say that you're going to go do this thing after we wouldn't agree and then come back and assume that you'll be able to come back in. A lot of masculine energy in this modality may now understand what feminine meant when she said, like, if you leave, you can't come back. Masculine almost looking, being like, what do you mean? I can come back anytime I want. Like, no, feminine meant like energetically. Energetically. This is, again, that moment, masculine, that you may be realizing if you were in separation and you had something that called your attention and feminine was like, please don't, and you're coming back, it's almost like feeling like something has left the room. Like the energy between you has disappeared because, like, yeah, it's a divine union frequency. You surrendered it the minute you made that choice that wasn't the unified choice. Divine union. You didn't make the unified choice, so you fell out of divine union. So that's that moment that for masculine right now, it's that point. And again, it may even feel right now like you're realizing and recognizing it feels like something has changed potentially between you and the energy, even if you're trying to come back towards it right now. Because again, you walked out of one room, you couldn't walk back in the same door. There was something behind that door that was different. Because that's that moment that you made the choice that wasn't the unified choice. You fell out of union. I tried to tell you this. Masculine and feminine that are staying in the divine union frequency, right? They're in the divine union frequency. This is that moment that, again, that point of objectivity, again, almost having to recognizing to a certain extent that you have to put some energy off to a certain extent. Having to just point some energy right now because you're keeping your focus where you think it needs to be. You're keeping your focus on what needs your time, effort, energy, and attention right now. For masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, it's just that observational point right now, if you're coming into divine union, that it may require disappointing some energy around you right now. But again, the difference in disappointing some energy right now which is showing whether it's productive or whether it's something that you have to kind of be watchful of, is whether you have to kind of say to someone, like, I'm sorry, I couldn't, like, this is not the time, this is where my intention needs to be. But if there's something about that time factor creating that like limitation or hurdle, then that's that point of observation as to whether something feels like, again, it was coming towards the divine union from a state or space of productivity, or if there was something else at play. Masculine and feminine to a certain extent, again, it's not about that question about whether you can interpret that or not. It's more of that moment of, again, making that point of observing and saying to oneself, that point of positive affirmation right now, and saying that you're recognizing mutually that as you're forming and coming into the divine union, it needs to be your first and ultimate priority, and that you need to make choices that you both feel aligned to. That's the difference between being in divine union and not being in divine union. So we see here that both energies are effectively committing to that path right now, even at the moment of having to like have something that feels like it needs to be postponed or it needs to be let go to a certain extent, because it's almost reevaluating and reaffirming the commitment to coming into divine union. Masculine and feminine in divine union right now, this is something that you know. And this is why if there's any of these outside setbacks that are impacting you to a certain degree, it doesn't affect you as much, because it's more of a point of notation. It's not feeling so much as something that was done incorrectly as something that you have to be mindful of. We see here that for the energy in the divine union, it's almost that moment of recognizing that, again, in the divine union frequency, you're moving at that state or space of making choices, allowing oneself that point of productivity, of mutual support, of continuing forward in that way. It's that point of recognizing, again, a lot of this work that we see, that's the path work for the energy in the divine union frequency right now, is remembering that one doesn't do this to ascertain or to get a reaction point. One does it because it is what one chooses to do. Again, it's much like a gift being given. It's like it's not the desire to do something for the sake of what it will give back. It is the act of giving that is the gift. So we see here that for a lot of the masculine and feminine energy right now, that point of support that you're giving each other in the divine union frequency is a reminder that you're moving in this way. You're doing these things not for that reactivity point, but because it is one feels one ought, nine needs to do, that is amplifying and giving each other support in that state or place. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is why we see the feminine is so guarded right now towards masculine, because this is feminine that feels that frustration that masculine is potentially too easily distracted or too easily taken off course. And this is why we see to a certain extent that feminine is almost like, even versus any kind of emotional appeals from masculine right now, feminine's so focused on their own self and their own effort and energy, because this has nothing to do with the fact or whether masculine cares about the feminine energy. One can have all sorts of care for someone and be easily distracted and taken off course. One can have an abundance of care, but more than anything, feminine is feeling to a certain extent that masculine's care feels too fickle. It feels too easily misplaced, because feminine wants to see that emotionality can actually be condensed into something that feels functional, feels practical. That emotionality, that level or degree of telling someone one cares about someone, it's easy. It's easy to say, I love you. It's easy to say, I care about you. Much harder to take that love and commitment and put it into practical effort. And that's what feminine's looking for right now from the masculine. Masculine, you're understanding this if you're on your healing journey. The problem that a lot of the masculine energy is having right now, and I need to stress this to the feminine that's healed, is a lot of the masculine energy that is in the modality of healing is like, I understand, I need to show you, but you got to give me you need to give me an access point to show you. This is literally masculine energy being like, please give me some kind of ability to show you. Because I have to stress, this is some feminine energy in separation right now, overcompensating, okay? overcompensating and being like, nope, nope. And this is literally like, this is feminine going, words mean nothing without action. And masculine being like, then give me something to act upon. Give me a task. Give me something to do. And feminine's always going, no, I can do it myself. And masculine's be like, what? Like, this is where we see that masculine is getting frustrated in this way, because we have to see feminine in separation. Make sure you're creating some kind of access point here, because this is masculine being like, if I can't tell you and I can't show you because you're doing it all yourself, what can I do? What do I do? Like, so make sure feminine energy, I got to tell you right now, if you're in separation, there might be some masculine energy right now that like needs you to throw them a bone. Continuing to get clarity on these cards right now. Speaking of which, what did I just say? Between our Eight of Pentacles in combination with our Queen of Cups, okay? One card to clarify. We've got here our King of Wands in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union right now. Like, this is what we think. This is what's really important, because it's not the fact that masculine isn't feeling some of that lack of confidence or uncertainty. Feminine is being a very mindful mirror right now. Feminine is being a very mindful mirror, because feminine is seeing the anxiety of the masculine but isn't amplifying it. Feminine, doing the work in divine union, is alchemizing the energy of the masculine's lack of confidence and giving it back with energy of love and compassion. Feminine potentially remembering moments in the past where masculine has done the same for feminine. So this is feminine. Again, this is the modality of the energy. When masculine is in need of something, feminine can reach into themselves and pull it out and give it to them. So we see here that this is feminine, almost like doing that to a certain extent, allowing that to be that like balm that masculine is putting on something right now. For feminine, to help masculine remember and amplify that this is something momentary that they're feeling. Masculine energy in divine union. It's not that you're feeling super confident right now. There's potentially some situations or circumstances that are making your own confidence feel a little shaken. Feminine, right there. Putting that balm there, putting that healing there, putting it where it needs to be to help you kind of feel like there's that emotional healing that's coming through, even at a moment that you may be doubting yourself to a certain extent. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is that moment for masculine energy, which may feel a little frustrating because it is feeling to a certain extent that masculine needs to deviate a little from the path that you may have been hoping to move on right now. But again, masculine to a certain extent, recognizing that if you're moving in the divine union frequency, that having that moment of making sure that the feminine is in a point of emotional comfort is what is going to lead to long-term productivity. It's more of that choice right now. And for the masculine in this modality, it is learning that lesson of patience. Because I'm almost seeing here that for a lot of this energy right now, whatever these circumstances are, it's not about this being a no. It's being a moment of almost looking at something and saying, now is not the time, because the divine union is forming. So again, for masculine energy experiencing this right now, this is almost feeling like a test in patience, but also recognizing that this is feminine energy that's given you some kind of emotional insight on something that you may not necessarily have seen in that way. Like, this is feminine energy. Again, your unified experience is already showing that it's showing some kind of like dividend, because feminine energy was helping you see a blind spot to something that you may not necessarily have seen without their emotional connectivity point. Masculine and feminine that are falling out of divine union right now, this is potentially a lot of energies falling out because masculine is lacking that ability of patience. Letting there be a moment right now where feminine's trying to say, we need to keep our focus on what we're creating right now. If this is masculine energy that is feeling too much, like there's something here they're insisting is harmless as they pull away from feminine. This is feminine that's almost like letting them go. It's just they can't come back in when they're done. It's like when they go, they can't come back because it was the fact that feminine saw masculine that refused to come into like minds with them on something. And that lack of ability of coming into like minds was all that the feminine needed to see in terms of seeing that the masculine energies, priorities do not lie in the formation of the divine union, but in outside situations and circumstances. Feminine energy in separation right now, this is why we see a lot of this feminine energy is so cautious and conscientious of letting masculine towards them right now, because feminine energy has some anxiety that masculine energy is very much focused on their own needs and desires instead of keeping mindful of where what the feminine needs to feel safe, seen, and supported. So for a lot of the masculine energy that's healing right now in separation, the hurdle is the fact of feeling to a certain extent that your eye is on a feminine, but she's doing both of it. She's like her own Swiss Army knife right now. This is masculine keeping an eye on a feminine who's like emotionally balanced and can work really hard and is working so hard that they're so inaccessible because they're emotionally balanced and they're working hard and they have no need of masculine energy. So this is masculine energy being like, what do I do? Like, what do I do here? Because it's almost this feminine feeling that point of wanting to move to a feminine in this way, but feeling that inaccessibility point is almost, what do? You got to hold space. You hold space. You don't make space, you hold space. And we see that for a lot of the masculine energy doing that right now is potentially what is helping the feminine recognize that you're not necessarily moving in a state or space of just trying to follow your own desire, but almost saying that the feminine is the focus. The feminine is the prize. The feminine is the aspiration point. Being in proximity to that feminine as they're in that modality. But even that may be a little hard for some of this feminine masculine energy because this is almost feminine being like, it's okay. So that even now we're seeing for a lot of the masculine energy, this could be feeling like a bit of a hurdle. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our High Priestess in its reversal in combination with our Nine of Wands. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Three of Pentacles in its reversal. Masculine and feminine in divine union right now. There's this moment that, again, feminine energy, this is difficult work for feminine. A lot of this work for feminine in divine union right now. There's a lot of new ground being laid. This is feminine energy that's moving with, like, again, feminine's navigating that difficulty right now. And I have to stress this for feminine energy. What is the difference between something that feels like it is new ground versus something that you need to be cautious of, right? It's giving me like a lot of construction site energy in a way. Like, again, when you're creating new ground, when you're working on new things, you have to be cautious. You have to be cautious as is necessary because you have to be very conscientious and careful as you build. So what we see here for masculine and feminine energy right now, this is why we see that the feminine energy in divine union right now is working so carefully and so mindfully in terms of being, again, a good emotional support system to the masculine, because there's that point of objectivity and observation within the feminine in terms of their own self right now, in amplifying what they want to give forth versus amplifying their own doubts and fears. This is feminine that in a way is almost trying to regulate their own anxiety, because feminine can almost like worst case scenario anything out of existence. But this is almost feminine energy in divine union frequency, navigating their own doubts, their own fears, their own anxieties, and looking at them and almost parsing through them to determine what is productive versus what is not. Because feminine recognizes that feminine wants to be mindful in creating productive ground upon which to continue forward into the path of divine union, especially at a moment where they see the masculine requiring and needing that sense of support in a moment that they themselves are feeling a point of somewhat like that instability that the retrograde potentially causes. So feminine right now is, again, working very mindfully, but again, might not necessarily be openly expressing to masculine their own doubts and fears, which may even in the divine union partnership right now make the feminine feel like a little bit more closed off. But we see here in a way that this is feminine energy that is being closed off only because feminine doesn't want to like express a fear that they feel and recognize they don't think is actually like warranted. This is feminine energy almost going through something and like parsing through their own sense of anxiety and concerns to determine what feels like it is productive versus feminine almost like hitting their own sense of over caution, as it were. Masculine, you may see this on the part of the feminine right now, but again, that point of observation, a feminine that is able to utilize that act of discernment isn't necessarily a negative for the masculine, because you may also be seeing right now that one of the things that you're trying to do for this feminine is effectively, again, recognizing what and where the feminine shouldn't doubt themselves, shouldn't doubt their own ability. This is what we see that masculine and feminine are working through right now. This is like the fine tuning that is happening in the divine union frequency, is like helping one another through those like very small, minute karmic hurdles. And it's almost feeling like watch repair, because it's like trying to it's feeling like those moments of like looking at what feels like it is productive versus what may be feeling like overly fastidious, as it were. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union. This is what we are effectively seeing to a certain extent that is difficult here, because what we are identifying right now for the energy coming into the divine union is, again, a moment of masculine and feminine seeing some circumstances and situations potentially opening up around them if you're coming into the divine union frequency, that, again, you're just learning how to do this. You're just learning how to come into like that singular mind, if you will, coming into that point of thinking about things from a unified perspective. It is one that is difficult for both energies, because in a way, seeing things from the perspective of the other almost like raises up points that you didn't see before, but it also leads to things that feel productive and functional. So again, amplifying away from the point of cautiousness and amplifying that new ground energy, focusing on the positive instead of worst case scenarioing right now, is very important, but it also requires you to kind of occupy a new headspace, because some of this has to do with masculine having to incorporate the anxieties and concerns of the feminine, but being mindful of them as you have this new ground that you're creating for the feminine and masculine in the frequency of the divine union. Some of this masculine and feminine energy is, bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to is falling into separation over this, because if this is a masculine energy that is not coming into a like mind with the feminine over something that they consider harmless and feminine is much more cautious about, then that moment, if masculine's moving forward in that way, you're falling back into separation, because that's a moment that you're not taking the feminine energy's guidance. You're not allowing it to become a point that you're unifying and seeing it as helping you recognize blind spots, so much as something that you're almost looking now on the outside in. You're like, it's already like whatever this is that you wouldn't agree on, it's created that separation factor, because again, you refuse to allow that to be a point that you can embody and recognize the feminine. So you're immediately looking at this as a feminine that's being overly cautious. But again, it's already put you back into separation. This is why the feminine energy in separation is so conscientious right now, because this is a feminine energy that feels like there's a masculine energy that does not necessarily recognize the discernment and the fragility of having two energies look at something harmless, and one insisting to move forward in a way that the other doesn't, is showing and amplifying just how harmful something harmless can be. So for feminine in this modality right now, this is why we see that feminine is very much focused on building things for themselves at this moment and having these guardrails up, because this is a feminine energy that is feeling very like it's almost creating a space or place that's like feminine is realizing and recognizing that it makes the feminine doubt their own self. It's almost creating that space or place where feminine feels like the only way they could be in like partnership with masculine was if they like abandon their own sense of caution. And that's something that the feminine energy simply cannot abide by, because it would be effectively abandoning their own self. So this is why we see that a lot of the feminine energy in this modality right now is being so cautious and discerning, because this is feminine almost feeling the frustration of a masculine that does not value the feminine insight, right? And that's almost that moment of feminine becoming very closed off and guarded to masculine. Masculine seeing feminine in its modality right now, you could be feeling that if in separation. Again, if this is masculine energy that moved forward against the feminine's own directive, and instead of coming to like minds with the feminine, tried to move forward and do something against or oppositional to the feminine, you may be finding yourself surprised, because suddenly that connection point to the feminine feels like it's gone. It feels like this feminine is suddenly very much unapproachable to you. It's like a wall has come up between you and them, because it has. because you effectively abandoned the divine union that was forming because you fell out of the frequency. And this is feminine almost that was trying to tell you in a way that isn't something that can be controlled. This is feminine being like, you don't realize like what you've done. You can't come back in because you effectively like you broke the frequency we were forming. So for masculine energy and separation right now, that point of optics may be happening right now. Or again, you're trying to build back towards something with the feminine. And again, it's that feeling like something is missing there. You're seeing it, you're recognizing it because again, you fell out of the frequency. And this is the feminine that's now closed off because the feminine's feeling the value weight of you having allowed the frequency to be interrupted by not moving in union with them. Masculine and feminine that are in separation, masculine seeing feminine right now, and you're trying to move towards them. If you're on your healing journey and you're trying to move towards them right now, this is that moment that feels so difficult because you may be feeling right now that there is feminine energy that you're trying to build with, you're trying to grow with, you feel that commitment towards right now, but you see the fact that in a way, it's like creating like almost a very, very like on very hard, like no inaccessible, like almost no accessibility point because a lot of that energy that you may be trying to build with right now is feeling so guarded. And this is what we see again, masculine energy moving in this way is almost this point in terms of identifying and trying to articulate with this new energy that you're potentially building with, that idea of a new start. That ability to identify and say like that there is new ground that needs to be covered here. There's something about this, about like creating that foundation, allowing this to be a place where again, you're not letting the walls be a hindrance. In a way, it's almost like you kind of again allowing your own ability to like show the feminine through your own actions that there's nothing here to be concerned about. It's like that ability to do so right now is what's allowing for some of that clearance of start, because this is, again, something that you're not even doing right now for the sake of coming towards the feminine. It's almost that state of being that you are inhabiting right now to almost amplify to the feminine that this is who you are and this is how you move. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Nine of Wands in combination with our King of Wands in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Nine of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine in divine union right now. This is that moment that we're effectively identifying and feeling that feels very difficult. And this is why we see for both masculine and feminine supporting each other right now is so important and valuable, because what we're really identifying right now is that moment wherein accessing and experiencing a point of recognizing what feels like it needs that assistance, what feels like it needs that support. Having that point of optics right now in terms of identifying and recognizing where you feel that you can build towards. Having that point right now, and for masculine, it is coming through as a lot of feelings of frustration. It's coming through as a point of optics right now in identifying where you're feeling that lack of confidence and where you need that support. While we see that for the feminine, coming through in that way, shape, and form as well is also very valuable and important, because it's really recognizing, again, amplifying what you're trying to give forth to the masculine right now, what feels like it is positive, productive, and helpful, versus what feels like it is problematic, is really amplifying where we see that the work needs to lie. This is what we are identifying in the Mercury retrograde that is requiring the work, because a lot of this activity that we're seeing here is almost masculine recognizing that there was going to be an extent, is almost articulating what feels like it is productive versus what is almost just creating those points of frustration that need to be navigated and mitigated. Continuing forward on this, masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, one of the things that we are identifying and seeing is, again, that moment of recognizing right now what feels like it is unifying the experience, what feels like it is helping you build that point of optics in terms of what you're growing right now, versus what feels like it is unhelpful, what feels like it is not supportive. For masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, it is that point of recognizing via the time what is going to feel like it is in the best interest of the divine union versus something that is departing because of the time frame, that's almost amplifying what is, again, in the best interest of staying in divine union right now versus what feels like it was trying to break you out of it. Masculine and feminine in separation. This is that moment that we are seeing right now that is so difficult. In separation, that point of optics and identification right now in recognizing what feels like it is creating that sense or space of building support for the feminine. It's that challenging space, because what we see right now for the feminine is that there's so much of this energy right now focused on that uncertainty in terms of where the masculine's coming towards them, that is creating a space or state of the feminine almost pulling back a lot of their own energy right now to focus on the self, to focus on what they're growing, and almost leading a space in place to allow for a point of optics in terms of masculine having to show through their actions what is actually in the best interest of building towards divine union versus things that feel like they're only moving masculine in their own direction. While for masculine energy and separation right now, that point of optics as it relates to circumstances and situations this is a lot of difficult work for masculine and separation right now, because what we're really identifying at this time is masculine energy feeling the frustration of trying to move towards feminine that is also in separation, but almost feeling to a certain extent that there's a difficulty because it's like the lack of foothold is the hurdle. It is the problem. It is the situation. So for masculine right now, it's trying to ascertain and move past that point that is going to be a bit of a challenging space. Like this is the goal coming through the retrograde. Final cards for today between our 3 of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our 9 of Cups in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Queen of Wands, masculine and feminine in divine union and partnership right now. One of the things that's very important is the fact that we're seeing that feminine energy is doing a lot of work right now in being I keep wanting to articulate this, being a very functional mirror. And when we see a functional mirror, what do we articulate that as? The ability to navigate what is coming towards you that feels like it is productive versus what is coming towards you that is only feeling problematic. The feminine energy right now, the work that we're seeing that a lot of the energy in the Mercury retrograde is having to navigate right now, is feeling that experience of having a lot of that unpositive energy coming towards them at this time, but instead utilizing their own powers of discernment, that internal navigation system, to help ask themselves and find that point of articulation in terms of what they feel is effective to bring forward to the masculine at this time. We see right now that for the feminine energy in this modality, this is where the self-work is coming into play. And it is going to feel like heavy energy, specifically for the energy in the divine union frequency, because this is that act of discernment that is being required. And it's heavy energy right now. Masculine, you may be appreciating and building that point of value and seeing a feminine that is able to do this work. It's not the fact or the state that the masculine isn't also feeling that stress in terms of your own confidence at this time. It is almost seeing a feminine energy that is similarly able to navigate those situations and circumstances with you and hold forth in that way, that is almost building that stability of masculine as it relates to, again, feeling the expression of a feminine energy that is able to hold forth in a point of positivity, even in circumstances or situations that may create a feeling of frustration or exhaustion for the masculine. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now. This is that moment of optics that is really amplifying whether the divine union energy is staying forth in this way. Because what we really see here is the identification point of masculine energy. Again, if masculine energy is staying towards the feminine, being able to come from like mind, similar mindset in terms of the situations outside of them that are creating a frustration point, then this is valuation that these can continue forward into divine union right now. Whereas if this is energy where masculine is not making that point of like-mindedness, is instead allowing their own autonomy to take forth. As opposed to that, this is potentially pulling them out of the divine union frequency. But what we see here is this is feminine energy that is basically holding forth even in that modality, not letting it build a sense of frustration, but rather holding their own balance in this, because these are circumstances and situations, whereas the feminine in separation is almost feeling that amplification of having recognized that they haven't necessarily done anything wrong. They're just continuing forward in the direction that they know that they need to maintain. Masculine energy in separation right now, this is that moment that may be feeling very problematic, because we see here that for a lot of the masculine energy in separation, that observation towards a feminine energy that has this ability, that has this capacity, that's in that modality of being, is one that you may aspire to, but you may also be feeling the frustration point of the feminine being at a point of such autonomy in this space that it makes them somewhat hard to access. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now is, we've got here our Six of Swords. So one of the difficulties or hurdles that we're effectively seeing at this time, again, for masculine and feminine energy in divine union, is that feeling of frustration, is going through any of those feelings of regret or remorse. Having to navigate some of this is allowing, again, a lot of this for the energy in divine union was intentional. Putting forth in a certain way, hoping for certain results, recognizing that some things take time, is almost something that is a part of the journey right now. The energy in divine union is navigating that together. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, that point of optics that we are effectively recognizing at this time, that recognition, as it were, as it relates to circumstances and situations, are requiring you, if you're trying to stay in the divine union, to again surrender some things right now, putting some things off, allowing the Mercury retrograde's desire of patience to come into play to help navigate those circumstances and situations. And we see that even for the energy staying in the divine union frequency right now, there is that moment of frustration that's potentially arising right now, specifically in relation to the fact of having to kind of put some of that space there as you move forward in this direction. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, what we are effectively seeing is that moment of optics as it relates to circumstances and situations. Feminine right now in separation is almost taking that moment of feeling the level or degree of taking it alone right now, wanting to do things for their own self, feeling that point of satisfaction in doing so. While masculine energy in separation, seeing the feminine in that modality, recognizing and seeing a feminine energy in that modality is that point of struggle, because it is creating a state or space of, again, feeling that need and that desire to come into connection, but also recognizing to a certain extent the impossibility factor sometimes that creates, because it is taking time to be able to build that level or degree of trust again as it relates to coming into communication with that energy. That is where we find... That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you missed this reading, you can catch all of it on my YouTube channel. And if you'd like to book a private reading with me, you can do so on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber ID at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading and you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never PM you. I will never DM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a private reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for being here with me today and sharing with me in these messages. And we will do this again